Welcome back to Show Science, and today I'm going to show you how to find late round gems in the draft class. Now, I've already made a video on how to find generational prospects, which is a very important skill to master, but to be honest with you, I think finding late round gems is the true key to having successful draft classes. In my experience, there's two ways to find these late round options, and I'm going to go through both of them in this video and give you some really good tips to have the best draft classes you've ever had. Before we jump in today, I've got to ask, if you enjoy this video, if it's helpful to you, drop a like and consider subscribing. A lot more content to come, and I want to reach 1,000 subs before MLB The Show 26. Okay, so we've got that intro out of the way. First thing I want to do is kind of explain what a late round gem is. What do I mean by that? There's not like an exact definition, so don't take anything to heart here. But late round gems, I'm talking guys that are 100th or higher ranked in the class. Now, this is at least for the first way of finding late round gems that I'm going to talk about. The second way is going to be through discovery, which I'll get to in a moment. There's going to be two types of builds that I want you to look out for the most part, the most common. First is going to be the 18-year-olds who have super high ranges in their potential and overall. Look at Jerome McCabe here. Overall could be anywhere from 27 to 61. Potential could be anywhere from 64 to 98. Who the hell knows, right? There's no guarantee that this guy's going to be a late round gem. Let me just get that out in front, but there's good initial signs. The game's not going to generate somebody who's 27 overall. And as I open up his profile, he's kind of got the classic MLB The Show contact build, which is usually a good sign. Again, it's not a guarantee. So I can't just tell you right away by looking at him if he's going to be a late round gem, but he has very good chance of being one. I'm just going to pause real quick and explain that you need to make sure you have good scouts in order to be successful here, especially guys with high efficiency. If you want to find late round gems, you're going to need to scout a lot of guys. For this video in particular, I've loaded up all my players just for position players. That's what I'm going to focus on today. I can make I can follow up on pitching in a future video. But yeah, look for guys with 90 or more efficiency, and then you see on the right side of each of these guys, they have 90 or more for their position player. So McCabe is the first kind of player that you want to look for late round. The second kind is the older guys who have very high max potential ranges like John Schofield. Again, there's no guarantees here, but just things that you want to look out for before you scout guys. That potential range of 85 to 99, guaranteed high, and the overall is low. So let's throw both of these guys on the board, get them scouted, and I'm going to look for another guy here as well. And again, as you scroll through your class, look for guys who have very low overall ranges and very high potential ranges, even guys that aren't ranked. Joe Curtis here has an overall range of 23 to 57, potential range of 63 to 97. He's 18 years old. He's checking a lot of boxes here. A couple more positives is that look at the power. Present power right and left, the minimum is 1. There's no way in hell this guy's going to have 1 power, so he's probably going to come in on the higher end of that. So let's throw Joe Curtis on the board, and we'll see if he ends up becoming ranked after being scouted. Take a mental note of all three of these guys. Draft ranks going in for Schofield 102, McCabe 111, and Curtis non-ranked. Let's scout them for a week and see what they look like. All right, so a mixed bag of things here. I think we've got a couple of misses and a hit. Schofield on the left here is 22, and if you have 90 or more efficiency for your scout, they will scout them in 1 week. This doesn't necessarily mean this is the final profile for John Schofield, and if I was doing a rebuild, I would probably stop here. For this video, I'll keep scouting him just to see a little bit more information, but here you go. He's got guaranteed 89 to 94 potential. His overall is very low, and he's 22 years old. So even though he's got a good potential range, doesn't necessarily make him a good pick. I really would have much rather his draft rank to improve from 102 where he started. He didn't do that. I'm going to scout him for another week just to get some more information. Not a great sign with Jerome McCabe. I felt pretty confident he'd be a good late round gem. And again, we'll go ahead and finish his profile just for this video. Most likely in my own rebuild, I would not continue scouting him because again, he fell down the board. He started at 111 and he went down to 136. Usually you've hit on a gem if they stay around their original ranking or if they improve a little bit from where they were. Now, it looks like we did hit on Joe Curtis. Remember, he was not ranked, and now he is ranked 113 in the class. So we definitely want to finish his profile, no doubt about it. Let's see how he is. I'll just scout all these guys again for another week. Let's see how they look. Okay, so we've got another week of information here, and I had a pretty good read on all three of these guys. I probably would not draft Schofield despite the high potential range. The overall is super low, and again, he didn't really rise up the board. He's still at 125. I would consider Schofield a miss. Jerome McCabe, also a miss. He's gone down further in the class to 158. So again, you're not going to hit every single time. That is why you want high efficiency. You want to be able to scout a lot of guys. Joe Curtis is a hit, and the fact that he was not ranked in the class makes it even more likely that you can get him very, very late. Like we're talking around 4, 5, 6 for your class. Do not be afraid to look at guys who are not ranked before you scout them. If they have that low overall and high potential range, they might jump up the board. Let's go ahead and look at some more prospects and go through sort of the same process as that first group. Here is a fantastic example of the player you want to look for, Ramon Herrera. Low overall range, 29 to 63, high potential range, and also notice that the max overall of 63 and the potential of 65 don't overlap. That is something in my experience that you want to look for. So as we look at Ramon's profile here, major green flags. He's got the typical contact build, which usually sims very well. And look at the low end of some of his present attributes. 1 power right, 2 power left. On the right side, 0 arm accuracy. This is exactly the type of guy you want to look for. He's ranked 98th, so a little bit below 100, but that's just a rough guide. We for sure want to scout Herrera. Let's take a look at Bob Gregg here, shortstop with good defense and very low present attributes here, ranked 118 in the class. Both of these guys are 18 years old. Let me try to find another older player in here. Here's probably another good option, Luther Cook, but I want to try to find another like 21-year-old to show you. Never scout a guy that looks like Ryan Parker. His overall and potential range are exactly the same. Matter of fact, Eric Byrne, same way. These guys are going to look good when you open up their profile. They are too good to be true. Avoid guys like this when you're looking for late round gems. So far, I'm not seeing many guys that I'm looking for here. Oh, there we go. But 23 years old, overall is way too low. Might have high potential, but would probably never make the league. As I was saying, I'm not finding too many guys here that are older that are hitting what I'm looking for. Norm Booth is, but he's ranked 80th in the class, so I wouldn't really count him as a late round gem. Maybe for fun, let's look at Vinny McDermott. He's the best example I can find for you of an older player with that high potential range. I don't have a ton of confidence in it, but let's get experimental and see how he looks. So we've got 2 18-year-olds that I'm pretty confident that will be gems, not 100%, and then we'll take a look at Vinny. Before we scout them for a week, 98th ranked, 118th ranked, and not ranked. Okay, very good signs for both Herrera and Gregg. They stayed exactly at their original draft rank. Do not worry about the fact that their overall and potential ranges went down a little bit. This is a good sign. I can pretty much promise you that after one more week of scouting, these guys are going to jump up the board. Vinny McDermott does have a guaranteed high potential range. He is very low overall at 23. He's not ranked, but let's scout him for one more week. I'm curious myself to see if he ends up getting ranked. All right, here we go. After 2 weeks, you can see that both of these guys, the 18-year-olds, have jumped way up the board. Ramon Herrera's ranked 30th now, and this is 100% a guy that I want to draft. Now, I will just warn you that the CPU is also probably going to scout Ramon Herrera and see that he's moved way up the board. So there's no guarantee you're going to be able to take him. Let's say you have the 98th pick. The odds are kind of low that he'll be there. When it comes time to draft, you probably need to take Ramon Herrera somewhere between pick 50 and 70 if you want to make sure that you get him. But do not be shocked if he gets picked even earlier than that. Bob Gregg, you've probably got a little better shot for. He's still ranked 76 in the class, but again, this is a good late round option. You could probably get him, and you might be able to get him with your 118th pick. Vinny McDermott, however, did not end up being ranked, so he will not be on your draft board. Even if you like him, you won't be able to draft him when it comes time for the draft. I would stop scouting here if I was in my own rebuild because you only have 14 weeks. You want to scout as many guys as you can, and I know enough about Herrera and Gregg. They would be good picks. But for the purpose of this video, let me just scout them until their profile is 100%. Let's see where they finish up. How about this? Ramon Herrera's now moved up to 5th in the class. This is like the gold standard of a late round gem. But again, since he's moved way up in the class, it's up to you. You may have to take him a little earlier than you want to. Gregg's also moved up to 52nd, so both these guys look good. I'll go ahead and go all the way to the draft this time, and we'll take a look at what these guys actually look like. Vinny McDermott's actually gotten better and better, but he's still not ranked, and I think part of that is because of his age. The CPU ranks older players, even if they have high potential, ranks them lower than an 18-year-old who had the same build. All right, let's take a look at how these guys ended up being, and there you go. Ramon Herrera is very good. 94 potential, 58 overall, and I'll just give you the advice that this contact, vision, and discipline build usually sims extremely well if you don't play any games in your franchise. No doubt he's a gem, as well as Bob Gregg, who's 50 overall with 89 potential. He's a little bit more typical of what you're going to find with late round gems. Lower overall, high potential. They need some time to develop, but they're still super valuable. So this is the first way to find late round gems, by looking for players with the profiles that I showed you. My advice is to not start looking for guys like this until you've found who you want to pick in the first round. So keep it chalk in the beginning, look at the best players, and then start to look at guys like this. All right, now let's talk about the other way to find late round gems, which is through discovery. So this time I'm just going to hire one good position player scout, and I'm going to hire two discovery scouts. Here's my position player scout, Dan Robles, with 96 efficiency and 95 position player. Let's hire him. This is gold standard, exactly what you would want for a position player scout. And usually you can find good discovery scouts further down in the class for cheaper, so don't spend a ton of money on them. You can see a lot of these guys have high discovery. All right, so our board's going to look a little bit different this time. This time we're going to start by discovering position players, and then we'll come back and decide who we want to scout. Just as a note, you don't need your discovery scout to have high ratings for position player. They're not going to actually scout them, they're just going to discover them. My advice is to always start with international. This region has the largest pool of prospects, and the smallest is West. So we'll start with looking at international infield, and we'll just shuffle through all the different regions and positions as we go. All right, so we found 3 players here in the first week. Let's see who has been recently scouted. So we found 3 guys, and the only one that I'm really interested in is Ray Terrell. So apply some of the skills that I showed you for the other late round gems here. Both Samuels and Tanaka do not have high potential ranges, and their overall, in the case of Tanaka, overlaps a lot with their potential range. I would not waste time scouting either of these guys, but let's take a look at Ray Terrell. The best discovery guys are going to come in ranked a lot higher than this, but Terrell is 21 with that guaranteed high potential range that we're looking for. And meanwhile, we'll move over to scouting outfield now for international. So we actually did not discover any outfield international prospects, and we have 2 discovery scouts going, so the odds are unlikely that we miss somebody. Given you only have 14 weeks to work with, I probably would not scout outfield international again. And here is Ray Terrell. He settled in at 101st rank, so he dropped down a little bit. As I mentioned, I didn't have a ton of confidence in him, and I probably would not pick him in the late round. So we'll remove him off the board, and let's now change our region. We're going to go to infield, and let's look at central. All right, here we go. We've got 4 prospects. Let's take a look at what we found, and there's a couple good signs here. So Chad Knight is the 12th ranked player in the class at 18 years old. However, if you have watched my generational prospect video, you probably see some red flags here. His overall range is a little bit too high, going up to 83, and if I show you his profile, this is way too good to be true. Looking at the other guys, I want to come back to Danny Lynn. Dan Huerta and Robbie Hogg for sure would not scout either of these guys. Danny Lynn, however, is interesting. Remember what we were talking about before? He's got that low overall range and that high potential range. I would be 50-50 on scouting Lynn in my own personal rebuild, but for this video, let's go ahead and scout him and we'll see. And now we'll just go ahead and shuffle over to outfield for Central and see what we find. Okay, we found some good prospects here that we'll come back to, but I have good news. Danny Lynn moved up in his draft ranked, so this looks to be a late round gem. I will finish his profile and we'll see where he ends up at, and now let's take a look at who we discovered this go around. All right, there's a lot of options for us here, starting with James Scioscia, 20-year-old right fielder, and if we take a look at his build, there's some green flags. He's got the contact, vision, and discipline build, which is so common. I think I already mentioned that before in this video, and the power is very low. No guarantees, as always, but we do want to scout James Scioscia. He's also ranked 21st. How about Miguel Rincon? He is checking some boxes for us. I'll just remind you, though, that his overall range does overlap a little bit with his potential. 69 max overall, 64 minimum potential. Kind of hard to read Rincon, so I probably would scout him for a week. I definitely would not scout Jesse Alfiler or John Deal, and I probably would not scout Daniel Keogh either. He's ranked 65th in the class, and looking at his profile, there's a lot of outliers on the right side with fielding and speed and stealing, which are kind of red flags for me, generally speaking. He does have the green flags of his hitting attributes, having really low present ranges. I would just have to decide case to case, draft class to draft class, if I would want to scout Daniel Keogh. He wouldn't be high up on my list. I fired our other discovery scout and hired another position player scout so we can look at 2 guys at once here. And now we'll just go ahead and shuffle our discovery scout over to the East region. All right, as I anticipated, both of these guys are showing very good signs. Rincon's now 51st in the class, and Scioscia's moved all the way up to 10, and he has elite contact. I would be very interested in Scioscia come draft time, and Rincon looks interesting too. I'll definitely finish scouting him as well. I know this video is probably long for a guide, but that is my style. I want to do things thoroughly. Let's look at who we found this time. Julian Castillo's ranked 24th in the class. Now, his overall and potential range does not have a big gap between it, max overall of 81 and potential of 92. Taking a look at his build, he does have that contact build that we've become accustomed to throughout this video, with his potential and overall being pretty close together, overlapping a lot. I don't have a ton of confidence in Julian Castillo. This is another guy that I would kind of be on the fence. If I don't have many other better options, I would scout Castillo. He does not check in too many boxes for me, though. And I would say pretty similar things about Lewis Hagg here. Now, he's 20, so sometimes older players have a little bit closer range between their floor and their ceiling. I will finish Rincon and Socha's builds for sure. Very confident in those guys. But just for the purpose of this video, let's scout both of these guys and we'll see what they look like. Take a mental note, 24th ranked and 62nd rank before we do any scouting. And this is why I say I'm hesitant to scout players like this, as both of these guys have now dropped down the board. Neither of them is terrible. If push comes to shove in a late round, you might want to pick these guys. The good thing about them is they have that contact build, which always simulates well. But I would definitely go back to the other guys that we found as much better options. I'm already pretty confident in James Socha. I probably don't need to scout him anymore. I know that I'd want to take him. But Rincon and Lynn have moved up the board a little bit, and we don't know how good they are exactly. They might move up a lot more. So I definitely want to finish scouting their profiles. All right, so here's where they settled in, and I wouldn't say they're the greatest late round or discovery options I've ever found. 51st and 57th rank is not someone that I'm necessarily rushing to pick, but there's still decent value for late rounds. Here is Rincon's profile, and here is Danny Lynn. Neither of them have great plate skills. Lynn has some good defense, and Rincon has some great speed. Let's take a look at who we've discovered, and we found Will Simone. Now I'm going to ask you, when you look at this guy, would you want to scout him? Initially, I would say almost certainly not, because he's 18 and the overall and potential ranges overlap a lot. There's only a 10 gap between the max potential and max overall, 89 to 79. And as we take a look at Simone's profile here, the power is too good to be true, as well as some of those stats on the right side with the speed, reaction, and arm strength. You're not going to hit on a lot of discovery guys. You're going to find a handful of them. Each class is different. Sometimes you might find guys that are ranked way, way higher. Sometimes discovery guys are even the best ranked players in the class, so keep an eye out for them. I haven't found anybody better, so let's go back to the guys we've scouted and start finishing some more profiles, and we'll keep discovering. By the way, I would not recommend discovering for catchers. There's not a lot of them. It's really not worth spending a week of the 14 weeks that you have trying to discover catchers. Stick to infield and outfield, and stick to Central, East, and International. But for this video, we'll scout West as well. I want to see if I can find anybody there. I'm not really focusing on pitchers for this video once again, but discovery for pitchers is absolutely broken. At some point, I might make an all-encompassing drafting and scouting guide that combines all the concepts that I'm putting together. But I'll just give you the hint right now that earlier in the scouting process, you actually want to discover pitchers and scout pitchers by region. So discover international and scout international. You can see me doing this in all of my rebuild videos. And then gradually you'll want to start to shift your focus to looking for late round gems and discovery for position players as well. All right, so James Socha has moved way up to 5th now. So he is for sure somebody that I want to take in this draft. Being discovery and ranked 5th, you have a slightly better chance of getting him later in the class than you do with the other guy that we found earlier in this video who was not discovery and moved all the way up to 5th. That being said, it's a crapshoot. Sometimes the CPU will take this guy for like the 10th pick, and sometimes they will never take them, and you can get them with your last pick. Julian Castillo's not great. He would be a kind of last-minute option for me. I am feeling okay about Rincon and Lynn so far. Since I've already scouted and discovered pretty much everyone that I would be interested in at this point, and we still have some time left in the scouting period, let's go ahead and take a look at Chad Knight, who I can promise you is going to be too good to be true, but I want to show you. And let's do the same with Daniel Keogh, who I feel the same way about, but there's a chance I could get proven wrong with him. Take that mental note, 13th ranked and 67th ranked before we scout. Early signs are actually decent after 1 week. Chad Knight did not move way down the board, although he did move down. And since we had the flexibility and the time left in the scouting period, I'm glad that I took a look at him. So we'll finish his profile. I think he'll continue to move down, but not be terrible. I do think that Keogh is going to prove me wrong because he stayed right there at 67th. And both of them have ended up better than I've thought. Chad Knight has rounded out as the 25th ranked player with great defense and contact. I didn't have good impressions going in, but I'm always happy to be proven wrong. Daniel Keogh also looks decent, 67th ranked, for sure a speed and defense center fielder, which is valuable. All right, let's go ahead and finish out the last week here, and I'll show you my draft board as we get to the amateur draft. So here is our crop of discovery position players. We actually found 7 of them. Now, I spent the entire 14 weeks discovering with multiple discovery guys at some point, so that is usually atypical. I'd say this is more guys than I'll usually find. James Socha is by far the best. We definitely want to take him. I'm also interested in Chad Knight, who's ranked 33rd, and Danny Lynn, who's ranked 34th. And then after that, it's guys that I wouldn't feel too bad missing out on, but are good to have on the board as we run out of other options that the CPU will pick. Here's Rincon at 51st, Castillo at 56th, Keogh at 67th, and lastly, Lewis Hagg at 70th. Let's start this draft and see what happens and if the CPU takes any of these guys. So with the first 9 picks, none of our guys were taken. So we definitely want to take James Socha first. He would be most likely to get taken by the CPU. Now simming ahead to the 40th pick, and all the guys are still here. Let's go ahead and grab Chad Knight. And now we sim ahead to the 77th pick, and somebody has fallen off my board. It is Julian Castillo. The CPU will also discover guys, and in this case, they found Castillo. Now, he was ranked 56th, and if you look, Danny Lynn was ranked 34th, so it's kind of random. Let's grab Danny Lynn for this pick. And now we sim ahead to 107, and another guy has been taken, and this time it's Daniel Keogh, who was ranked 67th. Discovery players do have a better chance of falling in the draft, but it's never guaranteed. Let's grab Miguel Rincon next. And Lewis Hagg has made it all the way to the end, ranked 70th, so we will finish it out with him. All right, let's take a look at these guys and see how we did. James Socha is definitely the best, with 90 potential and 61 overall. It makes sense that he was ranked 5th in the class. Here's his final profile. He looks like a guy who could win batting titles. We got Chad Knight, who disappointingly had 77 potential, which is not great, but he's also got a decent build for having C potential. He's going to play good defense, and he's also got good contact. Danny Lynn is a little bit more of a project, starting at 51 overall, but he has 86 potential and looks to be glove first. And lastly, Miguel Rincon and Lewis Hagg are not great. In my experience, you might find multiple really highly ranked players like James Socha for Discovery, but it's random. Sometimes you're going to get a lot of guys with C potential. All right, that is going to be it. I know this video ran long, but there's just a lot of good information that I want to share. I'm very confident that if you apply this information in the video to your next draft class, you will immediately have more success. In summary, there's 2 great ways to find late round gems: looking for guys with certain profile builds that are ranked 100th or later in the class. And don't forget, sometimes they're not ranked at all. And the other way is through Discovery. And with Discovery, you will have a little bit higher chances of getting some of these guys, these late round gems, but it's never guaranteed. My advice to you is to look for both of these options as you are scouting for your own franchises. And as you do it more and more, you'll get better and better and have a better feel for what you're looking for. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and please let me know in the comments below if these tips help you have better draft classes. See you next time. Peace.